What if the biggest threat to your financial future isn't inflation, rising interest rates, or even a bad investment? What if it's something happening inside your own brain right now? At this very moment, somewhere in Australia, someone is staring at the ceiling at 2:17 a.m. Not because they're sick, not because they're watching Netflix, not because they had too much coffee. They're awake because of money. A mortgage repayment, a credit card balance, a rent increase, a grocery bill that somehow feels bigger every single week. And while most people think financial stress is just an emotional problem, science says something far more alarming is happening. Because money stress doesn't just affect your mood, it literally changes how your brain functions. It changes how you think, how you make decisions, how you react to problems, how you sleep, how you focus, and over time, it can quietly reshape your entire life. Today, we're breaking down how money stress is rewiring the brains of millions of Australians, why it's happening, what it's doing to your decision-making, and most importantly, how to stop it before it steals years from your life. Because once you understand what financial stress is actually doing inside your head, you'll never look at money the same way again. Let's start with something most people never realize. Your brain was never designed for modern financial stress. Thousands of years ago, stress usually meant something immediate: a predator, a threat, a dangerous situation. Your body would release stress hormones. Your heart rate would increase. Your senses would sharpen. You would deal with the threat, and then the stress would disappear. The system worked. But modern money stress doesn't work like that. The mortgage is still there tomorrow. The rent is due next month. The electricity bill keeps coming. The grocery prices keep rising. The uncertainty never fully leaves. And that's where the real problem begins. Because your brain treats financial uncertainty like a threat that never ends. Research shows chronic financial stress can keep cortisol levels elevated for months, sometimes even years. Cortisol is incredibly useful in short bursts. But when it stays elevated for too long, things start changing. Memory becomes weaker. Focus becomes harder. Decision-making becomes slower. Emotional control becomes more difficult. In simple terms, your brain becomes less effective under constant financial pressure. And here's the scary part. Most people never realize it's happening. They just feel tired, irritable, distracted, overwhelmed. They assume something is wrong with them, when in reality, their brain is responding exactly the way human brains are designed to respond. Now here's where things get really interesting. There's a concept psychologists call scarcity thinking. And once you understand it, a lot of financial behavior suddenly makes sense. When people are under financial pressure, their brains become obsessed with immediate problems. Not because they're lazy, not because they're irresponsible, because their mental bandwidth is overloaded. Imagine opening 25 tabs on your computer at the same time. Everything slows down. Everything becomes harder. That's exactly what financial stress does to the mind. Upcoming rent, fuel bills, insurance renewals, school expenses, unexpected car repairs. Every problem becomes another open tab. And eventually, there's almost no processing power left for long-term thinking. This is why financial stress creates one of the cruelest cycles in life. You need long-term planning to improve your finances, but financial stress itself makes long-term planning harder. The very thing you need to escape the problem becomes harder to access. And suddenly you feel trapped, not because you're incapable, because your brain is overloaded. This also explains why people under severe financial pressure sometimes make decisions that seem irrational from the outside. They're not stupid, they're exhausted. And exhaustion changes behavior. Now let's talk about the area where financial stress hits hardest: sleep. Because this is where the damage often starts multiplying. Australian surveys consistently show money worries are among the biggest reasons people struggle to sleep. And poor sleep creates a chain reaction. Concentration drops, emotional resilience falls, productivity declines, impulse control weakens. You start reacting instead of planning, You make poorer decisions, which creates more financial stress, which creates worse sleep, which creates more mistakes, and the cycle starts feeding itself. Many Australians think financial stress begins when they wake up, but in reality, it often starts while they're trying to fall asleep. Now here's an unexpected twist. Financial stress isn't actually about income. Two people earning exactly the same amount can experience completely different levels of pressure. One person earning $90,000 may feel secure. Another earning $150,000 may feel overwhelmed. Why? Because stress comes from the gap between obligations and resources, not just income alone. Higher earnings don't automatically create peace of mind. Lifestyle expansion can easily outrun salary growth. Bigger mortgages, more subscriptions, more commitments, more financial obligations. Sometimes the more people earn, the more there is to lose. And that's one of the biggest financial myths in Australia. Money stress doesn't magically disappear once you reach a certain salary. It simply changes shape. But here's the good news. When financial pressure starts decreasing, the transformation can be remarkable. Imagine having no emergency fund. Every unexpected expense feels like a crisis. A dentist bill, a broken washing machine, a car repair. Everything feels urgent. Everything feels threatening. Now imagine having 6 months of expenses sitting safely in savings. The exact same problems happen, but your emotional response changes completely. Why? Because uncertainty disappears, and uncertainty is what the brain hates most. Humans are surprisingly good at handling difficulty. What we struggle with is the unknown. Financial buffers don't just protect your money, they protect your mind. And the impact doesn't stop there. Financial stress affects relationships too. Arguments become more common, communication breaks down, small issues become larger ones. Couples avoid talking about money, and avoidance allows problems to grow. Stress slowly spreads into mood, home life, family relationships, future plans. Everything becomes heavier. That's why managing money isn't just a financial skill, it's a life skill. And here's the most important part of all. Your brain can recover. Just as financial stress creates negative feedback loops, financial stability creates positive ones. Build an emergency fund? Stress falls. Sleep improves. Decision-making improves. Financial outcomes improve. Stress falls even further. The cycle starts working in your favor instead of against you. This is why the first $5,000, $10,000, or $20,000 in savings often feels life-changing. Not because the amount is enormous, because the psychological impact is enormous. You stop living in constant defense mode. You start thinking ahead. You start noticing opportunities. You start making decisions from a position of strength rather than fear. And that shift can completely change the direction of your life. So here's the takeaway. Money stress is not just something you feel, it's something your brain physically experiences. It changes how you think, how you sleep, how you make decisions, how you interact with other people. And the longer it continues, the greater the impact becomes. But the opposite is true as well. Every dollar saved, every debt reduced, every financial buffer built, every smart financial decision improves not just your bank balance, but the operating system running your entire life. Because financial freedom was never really about luxury cars, or giant houses, or impressing strangers. It's about mental clarity. It's about waking up knowing one unexpected bill won't destroy your month. It's about replacing fear with options. And once you understand that, you realize the real goal was never wealth. The real goal was freedom. If this changed the way you think about money stress, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next breakdown. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.